Last Tuesday, my next door neighbor brought me cookies. The reason she brought me cookies is because she went out of town to a funeral up in Buffalo, and she had asked me if I would go in and take her dog for a couple of walks on Monday. So I did that. Actually, I ended up only taking her dog for a walk once because she ended up taking her dog for a walk earlier in the morning. I went to physical therapy, came back, and then I took the dog for a walk in the afternoon. Not something I'm used to, but still, little tiny dog. It was interesting in the fact that it's a female dog named Kira, and yet she did a lot of things that male dogs do. So that threw me off because I haven't had a dog since I was 8 years old. So she brings over these cookies, and there's all this stuff that's on the table because I'm trying to change some things around to change the perspective of the upstairs, some of the rooms. And she says to me, you ought to take the chair that's in your mother's room and bring it out to the living room to swap it with the chair that you have there because it's in a lot better condition. I have reclining lift chairs for my mother. One of them I bought back like a few months after Mom moved here because she just couldn't get out of the chair. And if she wasn't in the mood to get out of the chair, she was kind of heavy to pull up. So the reclining lift chair lifted her up so that all I had to do was push her forward a little bit and she would put her hands on her walker, and then there we went. Well, she also had the reclining lift chair in the bedroom because she couldn't sleep in the bed. Tried for a couple of years, just wasn't happening. So anyhow, she left and I didn't think about it for a couple of days. And then last Thursday, I thought about it and I went in and I sat in the chair. It took me about 30 seconds before I had a massive anxiety attack. And I knew why I had the anxiety attack because it was, at that point, almost 4 weeks. It was, matter of fact, it was 3 weeks and 6 days since my mother passed away, and she passed away in that chair. And then I had to pull her out of that chair and pull her onto the floor to try to get her back alive, even though I knew that wasn't going to happen. And it just all flooded me all at once. And I got out of the chair and I said, no, that chair is gone. That chair is not staying in the house. It's still in the house right now because it rained most of the week. It's a nice day today, but it's just going to wait. But that chair is leaving. That chair is not staying in the house. So I'm going to make other arrangements. And then Friday, I have this weird internal clock. It's very accurate. I have no real control over it. I've had this for years, where there are certain things that my mind just automatically knows what time it is or around what time it is. For the first 5 or 6 years, I knew when my dad passed away because suddenly my mind would just tell me, on that date. Today's June 16th. It's almost 4:45, or it's right at 4:45, and I would look at my I didn't have a watch. Actually, back then I did have a watch, and I would look and say, yep, there it is. Well, every week since Mom passed away, and Mom passed away on September 3rd, for those of you who don't know, I automatically know the time. It just hits me. And so it hit me, and I didn't cry. I think the crying is done, but it just bothered me. I had all kind of anxiety. I said, I got to get out of the house. So I got in the car, drove to a Japanese restaurant, and it was just massive anxiety. As soon as I was in there, I wanted to go back home, but I said, we're going to see what we can do about this. But try going to a Japanese hibachi restaurant on a Friday night. That was messy, but they had regular seating also. But they were taking care of everybody else, and I was just right there, and I'm thinking, no, I got to get out of here. So I said to the lady, I'm sorry I came here. I've got to go. She says, oh, no, we've got a table for you. And she takes me over to the table. And it was just like, okay, you know what? That's just something saying we're going to help him to get some distraction out of this. So it took me to the table, and now I'm sitting down. It's like, okay, let's take some deep breaths, and we're going to be fine. And it took me maybe 5 minutes or so, but yes, I was fine. Sunday, I decided it's time to go through these movies that I have here in the living room in the entertainment center, because I had a whole bunch of movies that I used to rotate for Mom to watch. It was about 150. Some of them were really horrible, so they were on the bottom shelf. I had 3 shelves of movies, and then another shelf for compilations, like NCIS, first season, second season, whatever. That had its own shelf. So I'm trying to go through these movies, the ones I'm going to keep, the ones that were originally mine, the ones that I'm going to get rid of. And all of a sudden, another panic attack. And I just couldn't finish. So I've got all these movies on the floor in the living room, just sitting there because I can't do anything with it. That's the kind of thing that grief does to people. I had it, like I said, with my dad back in 2002 when he passed. But back then, I had support in the house. I was still married. Now I'm not married anymore. I don't have that kind of support. I do have support, though, which has been very interesting. I've had people who have reached out to me through text, through phone calls, a couple of them through email. So I do have some of that, but I have a lot of time where it's just me by myself. And it's having to keep seeing the reminders, not just of, stuff that Mom touched or whatever, but Mom's presence is everywhere. If you've been here for the last few weeks, you noticed that I used to have Mom's picture sitting over here. And beforehand, I had Mom's picture over here. Now I have Mom's picture in front of me, so I can see Mom with the smile. And the thing about that picture is that it was probably the last picture I got of Mom where I said, "Mom, smile," and she smiled. Because that didn't last long. Dementia is a horrible disease, and it took away a lot of her personality. It didn't take everything, but it took away a lot of her personality to the extent where she couldn't smile on demand. It just wasn't going to happen. If Mom saw babies or puppies, then she smiled. For a while there, if I brought Mom dessert, like every night I brought Mom dessert, and she would smile when she got the dessert. And then that stopped. Now it was like, "Okay, Mom, you want this donut? Here's a donut, or here's your dessert for the night." And she just started eating. She loved the desserts. I mean, that's where I got it from. But, it's those kinds of things that you sit there and you remember. I basically went through the first 2.5 weeks where I really still couldn't eat anything except McDonald's fish sandwiches and McDonald's small fries. And that sounds silly, but it was my comfort food. It's just what I gravitated to. It's what I gravitated to when Mom came home from the nursing home, when she first came home, where it was the only thing besides desserts that I could eat. And I was basically eating the one meal a day. I mean, I think I lost about 8 pounds during that time period. So you can lose weight by eating junk food. Of course, I was also walking a lot in the house, because I couldn't leave Mom alone. And, I have all these memories and things about the last 5 weeks that Mom was alive here in the house, and how I did all kinds of things to try to get more people here to help. That didn't work. I got a couple people, but I couldn't get that. I couldn't get any medical help. I'm still fighting the nursing home, although I've got some state support and actually Medicare support right now. And the nursing home people have no idea I've got this channel. Otherwise, they'd probably be fretting about what's coming. Medicare says I have a claim against them. So, let's see what happens. But, it's interesting because I sit there and I wonder, every once in a while I sit here and I wonder, how do people deal with it when they have to go back to work? In a couple of weeks, sometimes in a week. And I don't think that, there's a comparison for what I go through and what they go through, because these folks go through grief. I mean, last night I went out to dinner with a longtime friend of mine and her husband, and she had to deal with her father passing away, but she has a big support system. She's got the husband, her mother's still alive, and she has 2 kids. And his parents both passed away within 10 days of each other. But he's one of 8. So he had a big support system. However, his parents lived right next door to them. So he was there every single day. Because both of them worked, they could hire someone during the day to stay with both of his parents. And then he handled that all night long and over the weekend. You know, he would go over there and he'd do all the cooking for them and had to feed and whatever, and both parents. And, you know, we all end up at some point going through that kind of thing. I'm saying we all, you know what? It doesn't happen to everybody. Truthfully, not everybody has parents in that way. Some do, but some may have lost their parents when they were really young. But we all lose someone at some point who was close to us, and it affects us deeply. Back in '93, for instance, one of my college friends, who I'd had a crush on in college, but, you know, you have college crushes and you move on. But still, we talked a lot. I found out that she had basically committed suicide. And the thing is, I had only talked to her 2 weeks earlier on the phone, and she sounded really chipper. She didn't necessarily sound like the person I remembered from college, but she sounded chipper. And that bothered me for about 6 months, until one of our mutual friends said to me one day, "You can't take any blame for this. She made certain choices in her life that led her to this. You did whatever you could. You did talk to her. You kept calling her and talking to her. There's nothing you could have done to change her life." And then I got over at least feeling the guilt that I couldn't figure out that she was in trouble and there was nothing I could do. And yet I dealt with guilt with Mom. Even though I did everything I could, she was not going to get any better. I had someone recommend that I read a book. It was called On Grief and Grieving by, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong because she's German, so it probably doesn't pronounce like this. The lady's name was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but it has the 2 dots over the U, so I don't know how you pronounce that in German. And David Kessler. She recommended that I read this book, and I didn't want to read this book. I really didn't. But I read the book, and boy, a lot of the stuff that I had been feeling are in the book. And they mention other people who went through all these same feelings. Like, wow, I'm not alone. And just maybe 4 or 5 days after Mom passed, someone else I know, she helps people to write books. And she asked me if I would be willing to read a book by someone that she had helped to write this book. It wasn't edited at all. I'm glad she didn't ask me to edit it because I'd still be here. But she asked me to do this book, and her mother had passed away because of dementia. And I'm thinking, why would you ask me to read this book now? Because she knew that Mother had passed away, but I said, okay, So I wrote the lady, said, yes, I will read the book. Just letting you know, I'm not sure how soon I get to it. My mother just passed away 5 days ago. So she sent me the book. She's, gave her condolences for that. And I basically let it sit there for a couple of days. And then I finally opened it up after, at least over a week of Mom passing away. A few days after, that, so like 10 days. I did go ahead and open up the book, and I read the entire thing, which was 230 pages. I read the entire thing in 2 days. I speed read, but there are those parts where when you learn speed reading, you have those parts where you slow down and you decide, okay, this chunk I need to go through slower. And it was interesting because, once again, all the things that she mentioned as it related to dementia, not all of them, but almost all of them, the exact same thing with my mother. It was just one of those kind of things. It's like, wow, yes, yes. And then the feelings you have, yes, yes. And I had to think, okay, on one level, I was really lucky because even though Mom got agitated a lot, I didn't have a mother who could just get up and walk out of the house. She could not do that. She didn't throw things. I wasn't stupid enough to get her anything that she could throw that would even hurt anybody. I did once give my mother a knife. She was talking about how she was going to kill me. So I went into the kitchen and I got a knife, and I did not get a butter knife, which was stupid, but I got her a knife. I handed her a knife. Here you go. She says, what's this for? I said, you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. I would never want to kill you. And for whatever stupid reason I did that because I just wanted to see, okay, how much do you really want to kill me? Do you realize that you're just saying stuff? And sure enough, she didn't want to kill me. Does not mean that she didn't, for a longest time, every single day, tell me she was going to kill me, or she wanted to kill me, or how much she hated me, or that she wished I was gone, But then everything would change and she would go back to something else. Or maybe I'd bring her a couple of cookies, or maybe I'd give her half a donut. And it would just change. But, that's just one of those kind of things that when I read both of those books, you have these memories. You realize that you identify with a lot of other people. A lot of other people are going through the same thing or have gone through the same thing. And, there's also the weird things that happen that you end up having to deal with when someone that you took care of, and it's now your responsibility to keep taking care of them even though they're no longer with you, you have to deal with. I had ordered certificates of death from the funeral home. They had to get it through the Department of Health in New York State. But I, got them through them. So I paid them a lot of money to get 13 copies. So I picked those up. It's just so goofy. So I picked those up last Tuesday. They should have sent them to me like days after they got it, which was a few days after, the funeral for my mother. But they didn't. They just kind of let them sit there. They totally forgot until I called and said, by the way, any idea where those things are? And one of the guys called me, oh yeah, they've been sitting here. So I picked them up last Tuesday. So earlier that Friday, like in the afternoon, early afternoon, I finally had the nerve to open them up and look at it. And so I'm looking through this thing, and I really didn't want to have to do this, but there are things you need those for that you don't know that you need them until something else happens and you're contacting people and they say, we need a copy of this, we need a copy of this, whatever. And so I'm looking at the whole thing, and then they listed my mother as white. I said, well, I see that's not going to go, because one of the things that I have to do, I actually have to send it out of state to Louisiana, and they're going to compare it against her birth certificate to see if it's her. And having it say that she's white is a red flag. So then I had to contact the funeral home. They were out handling a funeral on that Friday, so I had to contact someone on Monday. And I just got those yesterday. I'm doing this video Thursday morning, so I got those Wednesday. And I just opened it up just to see if that one segment had been taken care of, and it has. You have to do the thing where I had to call a whole lot of organizations to stop them from making any payments to my mother in September or even October. And on one of those calls, the guy says to me, oh, and your mother has a life insurance policy. I said, wait, what? From where? When? I have no record of any life insurance policy. Well, she has one. So we're going to have to send you some information. They need a copy of the certificate of death. So that's, another thing. And then I got something from Social Security. Luckily, they didn't ask for that, but they wanted me to fill this thing out because they said that it's possible based on, when your mother passed, that you may be liable for some funds. Now, I've got a lot of people who've told me that they will pay $299 towards the funeral expenses. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, that ain't going to cover nothing. But, someone wants to give you money. But they could actually go retro and actually pay out the entire September payment, because it turns out that what Social Security does is they pay you for the previous month. So, for instance, when Mom's payment came in August, it was for July, and she was alive the entire month of July. They actually made a payment in September, which I had no idea about till I got a letter from the bank, and then I looked it up, and the amount was the exact same. I said, okay, they didn't take anything. Well, it turns out that they send the money early to the bank. The banks hold on to it for about a week, and then they show it. I didn't know that. So Mom had already still had money in that account, because I had two separate accounts for Mom. And so they had taken that back. So the other money's still there. But mom survived the entire month of August, so she might be due that. You know what? I don't care. However it happens. But I'm just letting you know there's all these things that you end up having to deal with later on. So, you know, we all kind of go through something like that. This just hit me, which is really sick. It's really sick, but it just hit me. There was an episode of the show called Homicide, which was back in, I think, the 80s. And it was a great show. It was on NBC. But they had this one thing where there was this guy who had no compassion for anybody. He was a little off. That's the term that we used back then. I think he still used that now. I don't know. He had no compassion for that. But he had these two Rottweilers that he used to use to attack people, and it killed them. Now, they realized that he was mentally unstable, so nothing was going to really happen to him. They're going to put him away for a while. But when they told him that they were going to have to kill the dogs, that's the only thing he cared about. And he broke down and started crying. Oh, my dogs. How you can't kill my dogs? Why are you killing my dogs? And he just had no idea. Dude, you've been using your dogs to kill people. But, you know, everybody has compassion for something. They feel something. And when it's a family member, if it's a close friend, it's hard to get over that. Tomorrow will be 5 weeks. And I know that getting close to 6:30, my internal clock is going to remind me of that. I'm hoping that at some point that starts getting easier to deal with. I have no idea what tomorrow's going to be like, but if it's anything like last Friday, there you go. Anyway, all of these aren't going to be like that, but I just wanted to mention this because you know what? Except for the stuff I had to do on Monday, I did nothing. Tuesday, I spent the entire day basically sitting here, except for eating, trying to figure out where to put my mother's picture on this desk. I cleaned everything off the desk, and I just couldn't really figure out where I was going to put it. And I eventually put it over here in this side, although it would be better on this side, but it would be close to the end of the desk, and I could push something over, have it fall over here. Never going to get touched. These are just the things that happen that you concentrate on. So I'm just sharing that. Back to the normal stuff. Actually, I can't even say I do normal stuff anymore. So, I mean, if anyone can tell me anything I've done that's normal, y'all let me know. My name's Mitch Mitchell. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, wonderful week, a wonderful weekend. And if you have someone that you care about a lot and you can do it, go give them a hug. Tell them how much you appreciate them. Tell them that you love them. Because there's just never enough love or appreciation in this world. Y'all take care.